What's up, YouTube? So on this channel, I mostly talk about like the business world, finance, and all of that stuff. But what I actually do, like for my actual day job, is sales. And I've been doing it for a while now, so I wanted to make a video talking about, how to actually sell. And really, I'm looking at this question from, basically how I sell, like how I've been able to, sell to so many people. And because I have that experience, I think it's going to be a very interesting video because not only am I going to say how, like, my system has shown that it actually does work. So basically, if you're talking to someone, you're trying to sell something to them, my goal always going into it is go basically as long as possible without trying to actually sell them. When I first talk to them, I'm not talking to them as a salesman. In fact, the product that I sell, is not going to come up for quite a while. Because what I do, I'm mostly looking at it as like a friend, right? This is someone that I've never met before, and by the end of this conversation, I want them to be a very close friend of mine, like someone that looks at me as like a friendly person that they would like to spend more time with. So yeah, I don't even mention it for a while. And like a good example of this, and this is one of my favorite episodes of this show, but The Office. So if y'all remember when, Michael Scott was trying to like sell somebody, like I believe he was at Chili's, and they were meeting at dinner with a client that they were going to like basically try to sell to. And, the entire dinner, Michael doesn't bring up the product once. Like, he doesn't bring up the sale once. He doesn't talk business even once. He's just sitting there laughing with them, like sharing jokes, like eating the dinner, like enjoying himself. And the sale never comes up at all. And what that does is it builds rapport with the other person. Because here's the simple reality. No one actually wants to buy anything. It's almost like it's our nature not to buy things. And when we see someone trying to make us buy something, like basically go against our nature, our instinct is to not like even, listen. Like our guard is way up when we talk to salespeople. And the first thing a salesperson has to do is destroy that guard. Because the simple reality is, if you don't destroy that guard that the other person has built up to try to not buy the product, they're not going to buy. So you have to tear down that guard first. And what you do is you establish a connection with them. So if I'm trying to sell to someone, I'm going to show up as a friend. I'm going to laugh with them. I'm going to joke with them before I ever mention the product at all. Basically build a friendship in my first interaction. And then after that, after you've loosened them all up, I think one problem that a lot of salespeople have, and the reason I think this, because the own company that I work for as a salesman, I see a lot of people struggle with this. They try too hard to sell. And what I mean by that is, they're basically, they're not only just pitching the product, but they're trying everything they can to convince the other person to buy it. When really, what I found is that, trust the product. Like at the end of the day, what you're selling to them is probably going to make their life better. Or at least that's how everyone should view it. Like the thing that I sell, I believe is something that everyone should have. Everyone that I talk to should have. So I don't feel like I really have to try that hard because it's a good product. I basically tell them what it is, and I'm like, I tell them the benefits of it, but at the end of the day, it's the most obvious decision in the world to buy what I am selling. So I feel like when people try so hard, it's almost like desperation, right? When you go into a sale and you're just insanely desperate, and you're basically like on your knees begging the other person to buy it, of course they're not going to buy it. Like if someone's like begging me to buy their product, in my mind, I'm like, well, this is probably the worst product ever. Because if it wasn't, you wouldn't have to try that hard. But before even that, you have to find out how to actually sell them in the first place. Because here's the thing, a lot of people say that every sale is the exact same. And it is to some extent that I've noticed, like the process is the same, but the way you sell is really different every single time. So like for me, after I've established the friendship, tore down the guard, the next thing I do is find out how I'm actually going to pitch this thing. Like, what am I going to pitch them on? Because like, let's say you're selling, tires, and this person doesn't own a car, it's not really going to work, but maybe they own a golf cart, and you can picture that. Like, that's a terrible example. But my point is, what I do is ask them a bunch of questions to try to figure out which parts of what I'm selling actually matters. So, like, I ask them a question, like, basically, ask them a question about one part. I'm like, does this apply to them? No. Does this part apply to them? No. Does this part apply to them? Yes. Does this part? No. So I'm not even going to really talk about the other three things. I'm solely going to focus on what actually applies for them. Because here's another reality that I've learned. If you tell them what matters to them, but also tell them about the stuff that doesn't, in their minds, they're just like, well, most of this I won't, like, most of this doesn't even apply to me. So I'm not going to buy this thing if I only get to use a small part of it. So you got to solely focus on what actually matters to them. But by asking questions in your mind, you should be building your pitch, right? Which parts are you going to include in it? Which parts are you not? Like, you should be figuring out how exactly you're going to make the sales pitch. And then you get into the actual pitch itself. Now, when doing this, when you're actually pitching it to them, my goal is never, I'm never going to lecture someone on why they should buy. I'm going to lead them to the conclusion that they should buy. And the difference is, I'm not going to look at them and be like, this product's going to save you so much money in the long run. It does all of this stuff. This is why you should have it. I'm going to ask them, this product does this thing. How does this thing apply to what you are doing, and how does it help you? And basically, like the different aspects of it. I'm like, this product does this. Your alternative does this. Is this something that benefits you more? And basically, as they say yes to everything we have, and basically they've aligned it where each part of what I'm selling them fits what they want, then there's no reason for them not to buy it, because I didn't sell them. They sold themselves. Their answers led them to the conclusion that what I'm selling is better for them. And that's my goal every time. Like, I noticed this when I first started working at my job. I would try to lecture them on exactly why what we have is better than what they have. And that's what I'm supposed to do. Like, they look at me and they're like, of course he's going to do that. He's selling for them. He wants us to buy it. Of course he's going to tell us all this stuff. But you gotta help them reach the conclusion for themselves. And the interesting thing is, they're going to give a lot of objections on the way. And that's a good thing. A lot of people hear the objections. They're like, well, these people aren't interested. I'm going to go find someone else. But the objection shows that they're interested, because they're voicing the objections as basically, well, think about it like this. If someone was pitching you something and you weren't interested at all, like you could care less about this product, you're probably not going to say anything. Like, you're just ready to get out of there. It's not something you're interested in at all. You're just going to let them finish and then move on. But they're actually voicing objections. It's because they have some kind of interest in it. But the thing is, and this is always key, every time someone gives me an objection, I acknowledge it. Like, I agree with it. I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. Like, I agree. But then I show them why the objection is wrong and why it doesn't apply to what exactly I'm selling. Like, I acknowledge it, I agree with it, and then I show them the answer. My goal is never to really disagree with them, just to acknowledge it and then provide a reason why it doesn't apply. And by doing that, while their objections get gone and they're agreeing with the aspects of it, then when you get to the end, they're already sold. But you didn't sell them, they sold themselves. And that's the strategy that's always worked best for me. So, like, in the beginning, establish rapport. Don't try to sell them. Establish a connection, get the guard down. 2, answer questions on your pitch. 3, make the pitch and agree with the objections by providing like an answer to them. And then 4, make the sale by letting them sell themselves. And that's the way that's worked for me. I don't know if it's going to work for you. That's just what's worked for me. But I'd love to hear responses down below in the comments. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel.